So for those of you that have been on this channel before, you've seen any of my work, you'll know I'm an absolute sucker when it comes to the film look, on replicating an analog film look in my work. For me, as incredible as digital imagery is, the transition from analog to digital was a revolution. However, I do feel like there was something lost in the process, and that's something that's quite hard to put your finger on, to describe with words. It's not necessarily tangible, but I feel like there's some soul, character that has been slightly lost. It's there in analog film, but it's not necessarily always present in the digital equivalent. As we all know in this day and age, with what feels like every passing week, cameras and sensors are just getting better and better. Cleaner, sharper, higher and higher resolutions, more and more clinical and perfect. It's all subjective, of course, because for many people that's exactly what they need. However, for me, that's not necessarily what I always want. In my work personally, I like to retain some character, even if that's at the expense of other things such as higher resolution, for example. So that's why I've always found myself trying to replicate as close as I can get to the film look, an analog look to my images. I guess it's just I'm trying to replicate the soul and the character of the good old days of film. There's just something about it. It's hard to explain. Dare I use the term cinematic? But that is what it is, or at least that's what it means to me. Despite the fact that analog filmmaking and analog photography was on the whole before my time, I did still, I guess, grow up watching all the classic films, all of which were shot on film. So I guess maybe there's a nostalgic element there, I don't know. But as a filmmaker, the film look is something that I'm always trying to replicate whenever it's called for. If I'm really honest with myself, it's probably more like whenever I can get away with it. Also, if you're aware of my channel, you probably will realise that traditional product reviews, you know, in the traditional sense, isn't really my thing. I've always preferred to kind of just go out and make stuff, share it on here, and then chat about it in the comments, that kind of thing. I do, however, frequently have brands reach out to me. I do get sent things to try, and more often than not, it'll be a case of going back and saying it's just not really for me. But every now and then, something comes along that I do really, really like. I can see how I would use it myself in the real world, and therefore I could definitely recommend it to other people like me. And this is definitely one of those occasions. So when the guys at Dehancer reached out to me, they asked me if I would be interested in trying their Dehancer Pro plugin for Final Cut Pro. I was immediately interested on this one. Not only because I'm someone that loves to try and emulate the film look, but also because I do the majority of my work in Final Cut Pro. There's lots of reasons for that, I won't go into them now, but it's predominantly because I shoot pretty much all of my content in either ProRes or ProRes RAW, and those codecs are effectively native in Final Cut. I've now been using the plugin for the last couple of months, and I feel like I've got to know it pretty well. The last 3 or 4 uploads, I think, on my channel here were all graded with Dehancer Pro, including the short pieces I shot using the new Lumix S5 Mark II. In a nutshell, to me, it looks like they've created the closest thing you can get in the digital world to real analog film processing, in terms of both the workflow, the actual processing itself and how that is carried out, as well as the resulting image and what the image actually looks like at the end of it. So if, like me, replicating a genuinely authentic film look is your thing, then you're going to want to check this one out for sure. So I'm going to hop across to Final Cut Pro now, just to give you a general overview of the plugin, what's included, some of my general thoughts on it, and then also explain how and when I'm going to use this myself going forward. Let's do it. So jumping straight in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a very brief overlook of the pipeline here and all of the tools that are included. It's a very powerful tool and there's so much in here to dig into. I'm not going to be able to go through everything, but we can give a brief overview. So I've just picked a few shots here, some from my archives, footage from previous projects, bit of a mixture, a few different cameras, also a bit of a mixture of scenes, just so we can see how the plugin handles different scenes, different lighting conditions. I've had a bit of a chance now to use this plugin on a few different projects, so I feel like I've got to really know it now, and I can honestly say, as someone that's always loved the film look, it's by far the best I've ever used. Just the tools that you've got there in the plugin itself that are built in, the pipeline, and also the level of control that you have in here. So the first section here is your input settings, so this is where you will put in your camera settings and things. You can do some basic tweaks to the input footage, so before any of the rest of the pipeline kicks in. The next part is your film stocks, and this is really where this plugin shines, because there's just so much to work with. It really is quite incredible. The variety of looks you can get from this really is quite amazing. As well as that, there's a really great feature which I really love, and it's push-pull. So all film stocks behave differently depending on how much light they receive during exposure. Within Dehancer Pro here, each film stock in fact consists of 3 separate profiles. You can see how it affects the colours and the contrast. So just by using push-pull alone, you can get effectively 3 different looks from the same film stock. Then we've got film compression. So the way film compression works is it emulates how film actually behaved in terms of exposure and the highlights and the clipping point, and it allows you just to get a much more filmic look. Then we come on to the print settings. So got our film stock, and then you can emulate the print. You've got full control over the print exposure, and you've got control over the contrast, which is amazing. Then we have color head. This is effectively where you really dial in the colors and the look. This is basically a CMY color head. What this effectively is it's emulating the color filters, so you can push the image. You've got a huge amount of control over where the image goes. And then we've got the shadow tone, highlight tone, mid-tones, which allows you to push in tone into different areas of the image. After that, we've got the film grain, halation, bloom, vignette, film breadth, gate weave, all built into the plugin. If we look at the film grain, again, if just touching on the scientific approach they've taken, most plugins, when you add a film grain, it's effectively just an overlay. Film grain isn't actually sitting on top of an image, it's actually part of the image itself. They've done some 3D witchcraft, so the grain isn't just overlaid on the image consists of grain. We just really ramp it up so that it's obviously far stronger than you would want it to be. The grain is so realistic. I mean, YouTube compression is going to absolutely maul this, unfortunately. So you're not really going to get a good sense of it via YouTube, but the grain really does look like part of the image rather than simply sitting on top of it. Next, we have halation. It's really nice to have that built in. The other nice thing about it is you can even tweak the hue of the halation itself. You can see the effect that it's having there. Of course, I've gone very extreme. And then we have bloom. If we flick this off and on, the bloom does a fantastic job there. The source limiter is a really nice addition too. So you can limit the areas to which the bloom is applied. If you increase the source limiter, it will only affect the brightest highlights. And then we've got vignette. It's really nice to have vignette built in to this plugin. Then we come on to film breadth and gate weave, and to my knowledge this is the only film emulation plugin I've ever seen that has these tools, and honestly I didn't realise how much of a difference they actually make. Film breadth, what that's about is the natural, almost flickering kind of effect that you get with film, in the sense that your exposure, your contrast and your colours just slightly change. And then finally we have gate weave. Gate weave is the movement you get on the image through the mechanical process of the film going through a projector. So that's just a brief overview of what's included in the plugin. When you combine each of these tools subtly, it's such a convincing look. So as you can see, it's a fantastic plugin and gives you all the tools you could need really to really authentically, convincingly replicate that look. Personally, I feel like it's the closest I've been able to get with my own images, more so than the other plugins that I'd used previously. I'd even go as far as saying it's potentially the only single tool you could really need if replicating that look is your thing. Anything negative? I can honestly say I can't really think of anything negative about this plugin. As you would expect, there's a lot of very powerful tools in there that require a lot of processing, so it can slow things down slightly. However, I found if you just turn off some of the more processor intensive tools within the plugin until you're ready to export, that speeds things up significantly. So if you just temporarily switch off halation, bloom and grain, things run very smoothly. So I don't really see that as a big problem. I did experience it crash a few times. Every now and then it would just stop responding and you'd have to close down Final Cut and boot it up again. However, this is a very new plugin for them on Final Cut Pro as a platform, so I'm quite sure both the speed and the stability of the plugin will improve with further updates, so no real concerns there. The only other thing I could really suggest is it would be nice to have a saturation slider on the input section. As I explained earlier, there were a few occasions where, depending on the lighting and the lens used, I just wanted to tweak the saturation of the actual raw footage, the out of camera footage itself, before any of the processing that comes in Dehancer. So I found myself adding like a wheels adjustment underneath Dehancer Pro. However, if there was a saturation slider within the input settings alongside the exposure and tint, that would save you having to put anything before Dehancer whatsoever, and everything could be kept within the plugin itself, so that would be nice. Other than that, I can say I do genuinely love this plugin, and it will be my go-to plugin now whenever I want to replicate a film look. In fact, not even necessarily replicating film. It's a good standalone plugin for grading. You don't necessarily have to go full hog with halation and bloom and grain. The colours that come out of it on their own are just fantastic. So it's also very versatile, and it's definitely going to be part of my workflow going forward. All in all, so impressed. The guys at Dehancer have done a fantastic job with this plugin, and I'm sure it's only going to improve going forward as well, which is awesome. So I'd like to thank them for reaching out, and can't wait to get to know this plugin even more. And I do mean that, not just saying it for YouTube. Oh, almost forgot to mention, they've also been kind enough to provide me with a discount code that I can pass on to you lovely lot. So if you're interested in purchasing Dehancer Pro yourself, you can use the promo code ROWFILMS to get 10% off. Give the free trial a go and see how you feel with it. Then you've got a promo code ROWFILMS to get a little bit of moolah off. Finally, further to this kind of just general overview, I've also done a kind of step-by-step walkthrough of how I went about grading some of the shots that you saw in this video. If you'd like to see that and that's of interest to you, please let me know in the comments and I will get that sorted out. I've left all the links in the description, so if you want to find out more, check out the links, go and read more. Their blog is fantastic as well. Properly explains how everything works and why they've done what they've done. It's impressive stuff. Rocket fuel! Not sponsored. I think that's everything. I think that is everything. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Drink up. Goodbye.